Okay, well, welcome, Marnix Pauwels. Am I pronouncing that rightly?
Yeah,
Uh,
amazing. It's amazing.
welcome. Thank you so much for being the guest on this week's conversation. And I'm really delighted that you're here. And the topic that you have chosen is addicted to bliss. So I'm intrigued to hear where you're going to go with that. Um, there was a bit of a blurb on the Facebook group about some of your background, but as I understand it, you were originally a copywriter and you
Hmm.
are now an author and a coach and maybe some other things that you'd like to talk about and tell us about as the conversation goes.
Yeah.
And I think, and I don't know whether you were planning to touch on this stuff, but I think you have had some issues in the past with compulsive behavior. Maybe you don't, maybe you do or don't describe it that way now. But the theme of this theme of addiction is what's running through these conversations. And one of the reasons for doing these conversations is to support the first three principles conference on addiction, which is happening in Minneapolis in May next year. So,
Hmm.
but you can talk about anything you want. So, Marnix, over to you.
Yeah. Well, it is a topic that's close to my heart. Like you said, I was addicted to alcohol for give or take 28 years.
Wow.
Um, I was addicted to smoking as well, and smoking marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so a large part of my life was about suppressing anything I didn't like and escaping this discomfort and feelings of inferiority and lack and so but I really don't mind talking about my past and my addictions because you know, over the last few years, I've seen that we all fuck up constantly. So, why should you be ashamed of the stuff you do? We all try, we all do our best, and we all have our own ways of coping with life. And one of the books I wrote a few years ago is completely about addiction, and I make the case in this book that addiction doesn't really exist. There's not a thing. There's not a thing that's hiding inside of us, waiting for its chance to do something to us. It's just simply put, it's an innocent way for us to feel free, to get some freedom around the thinking we have, around the self-criticism and the judgments we have going on in our minds constantly. And the addiction is just the effect or the result of trying to cope with that, to have some relief from the discomfort. And an addiction is just a vicious circle where you get caught in the habit. That's it. I don't see it as a thing that's part of your brain that's waiting there for you until it can attack you and disarm you and hurt you and cripple you and stuff like that. But I did think about addiction in that way for a very long time, and especially because many of my therapists, psychiatrists, and psychologists always refer to addictions as a disease, as a genetic thing, as something I should. Well, it was possible to live with it, but that was, highest possible. And the same was for my depression and my anxiety. At one time in my life, I had so much anxiety that I was afraid to leave my bedroom. So I stayed in bed for weeks and with the curtains drawn. My former girlfriend had to take care of me. I was even afraid to leave the bedroom to go for the bathroom. And that also was diagnosed as a thing that would haunt me for the rest of my life. And with some medicine and some hard work and some coping mechanisms and some tapping and some whatever, what have you, I should be able to have a relatively normal life. So that's all in the past because, you know, like many people in the principles, I guess, have seen, these things don't, they're not who we are. They're not borders around our possibilities. They're not the end of our potential. They're just misunderstandings. Like my misunderstanding was that if I felt uncomfortable, that it was fear, and that when I felt fear, there must be something around me that was causing the fear.
Mm.
And I always found a reason. You know, at first it was okay. Then when I first had a panic attack, I found the reason in too many people around me. And after that, I became really good at finding new reasons for my fear. So I became fearful of bridges or trains or being in an airplane or walking across squares or going shopping or crossing the street and at the end of the whole cycle, I was scared of everything. What I didn't know, and that I realized one day when I was sitting on the couch in my living room, I was sitting down and just doing nothing. And I suddenly realized I'm nowhere near a square. But when I think about a square, I get restless. So I thought, wow, that's funny. And then I thought about being in a plane, and I had the same response, the same reaction, the same physical reaction. And I thought, wait a minute, there's no plane inside. I'm not on a bridge. I'm not in a train. I'm not on a square. I'm not amongst a bunch of people. And then, like 80% of my fear was gone. Mm. So it was stuff like this that helped me get comfortable around my feeling uncomfortable. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because it strikes me that you were very fortunate to see that link, because often people are just aware of the feeling, and it's perfectly natural, normal, even if mistaken, to attribute the feeling to whatever's around.
Yeah, because we all think in causality. We think there has to be a cause for whatever's happening right now. We don't see. We haven't. Nobody taught us that the whole system is inside us, constantly creating our experience.
Yeah.
So when you don't know, you don't know, and you act like most people do. You blame everything around you because you have to blame something. And if you can't find anything, you can always go back in time and find something 20 years ago. Now we have it. It was my mom who left me alone in the brass section of the supermarket or the warehouse, and I lost her for 5 minutes. Ooh. So there's always something, and you know, psychology and the human experience is such a fascinating thing, and we can never escape it. So that's maybe the most difficult fact, that we can never step out of our own experience.
Yeah.
So so I think I started drinking when I was around 14. The thing that I did then is that I took almost empty bottles my parents drank, wine or port or beer or sherry or vermouth or something like that, and I mixed it. And my parents thought it was cute. They were like, oh yeah, he's always mixing alcohol. And then I mixed it and I drank it. So I started drinking when I was 15, 16. I drank more, and I was where I grew up in a place in Holland. It was a very wealthy community with many unhappy people. Many unhappy people. People were constantly, you know, having sex with the neighbor, and a lot of drinking, a lot of pain, a lot of depression, and drinking was completely normal. Everybody did it. You know, my parents drank when they had something to celebrate, and they drank when life was fucked. And in between, well, there was booze anyway, so why not drink it tonight as well? And then I went to Amsterdam to study, and I did for the 2.5 years that I studied. I never did anything. I drank constantly, and I smoked marijuana all day long. and it became part of my life. I had some periods, especially when I had some big transitions from trying to study to my first job in advertising, that based on pure willpower, I was able to quit drinking for 2 months. And when I felt comfortable that I was, you know, uh, solid in my new situation, that I kind of knew what was expected of me, I picked up the drinking again, and it became my everything for me, to be honest. That was so very hard when I quit drinking 7 years ago. I didn't realize how much it had seeped into everything that I did in every minute of my life. I was constantly managing my alcoholism, not just because I constantly had to buy booze or hide booze or throw away empty bottles, but I also had to manage my lying, you know, my cheating, my disappointing people, my not showing up for the thousandth time when I had made an appointment with somebody, my not showing on Monday morning at my own company because I was always in bed on Monday morning, and every Sunday afternoon I was sure that I wouldn't drink that day. Sometimes I managed to do that until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And every time again, somewhere along that Sunday, I got up, put on my jacket, went outside, drank beer and marijuana, and stuffed myself and drowned myself in oblivion, and went to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning, so ashamed that I couldn't sleep until 6 o'clock. And then 1.5 hours later, my alarm would go for my work to so. And then I texted the people who did the administration at my job, who people you should email or contact when you were ill. And I said, I'm not coming today. And I shut off all my telephones and all my communication and my computers. And I went to bed again. And then I woke up at 3 in the afternoon, starting on my telephone, 35 missed calls. Again and again and again and again and again and again, year and year and year and year after year. So sometimes in between, I was very interested in reading about spirituality. My parents had books from Shirley MacLaine and You Can Heal Your Life and Wayne Dyer, and my parents were casual spiritual people, like for 3 months, and then they're not interested anymore, and they're very devoted to spirituality when they were. And when they were not, they couldn't care less. So there were always these books were there in the home where I grew up, and I was very interested in it. I don't know why, and I have had all, in all my life, even when I was drinking heavily, I had periods when I got interested again in spirituality and picked up books again and started reading again. And when I quit at October 22nd of 2012, it was the last time I used anything. After that, I became obsessed with reading and learning and studying, and I replaced the numbing of the alcohol with the numbing of reading. I wanted to find the golden key for my pain. And what I didn't know when I quit drinking is that because I had been an alcohol or drinking person from the age of 15 or 16, there were a lot of normal things, normal skills that I didn't know how to deal with, how to do, how to act, how to behave with, without being hungover or drunk, so I had to, in a way, reinvent myself or find myself. It was very painful. really very painful, because I had no clue how to deal with, with people who judge me other than uh, uh, drinking and getting away from the situation. I couldn't be criticized. Everything that um, was fearful in my eyes was threatening, and I had absolutely no way of dealing with it. I didn't know how to do it, so it was very hard. It took me a few years to, the first year, the boredom. It was horrible. I had nothing that I liked, nothing, because the thing was, I started reading so much that after three months, I sat on my couch. I was like sitting in between piles of books, and I felt like the last letters I had read from a book. They were were dripping out of my brain again. They were seeping out of my brain again. Like, no, it was full. So I was like, I couldn't read anymore. It was done. So I couldn't read. The only thing I found interesting right then, I couldn't drink, and there was nothing else in the world I liked. And I stayed with that feeling for like 3/4 of a year. And there were at least 1,000 moments when I thought, well, the hell with it. Let's have a drink. Because, when the euphoria was gone after the first month, it was horrible. It was very, very hard. Yeah. And I didn't know that. I thought I'll feel great. I'll be proud of myself constantly, and everything in my life will go smooth and amazing. No, no, it was horrible. So I've been at least 10 times. I was standing in front of the liquor store with my head, to the window, looking inside and crying for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and sometimes I even, got into the liquor store, walked a circle, and then walked out again and walked back home again, and cried. That was what I did then. I cried for all of my life. I hadn't cried before, so I had a lot of tears left from all the moments that I didn't give into that. So there's a lot of crying, a lot of agony, a lot of worrying, a lot of pain, a lot of distress, and then when things got clearer for me, and I got more used to this new way of living sober. I started reading again, and reading and spirituality became my new addiction, because in a very subtle way, it gives you everything you need to escape the stuff you don't like or you're afraid of. It gives you a huge hammer to treat everything like a nail. So I started meditating, and whenever I felt angry or frustrated or irritated, I zoomed out and I took a time out. And I always found some love in myself, and I had empathy for the whole world. And that went up and down. So 4 years ago, I got into non-duality, or Advaita, which is very fascinating philosophy. And it's for me, it's for spiritual seekers who want an intelligent solution. So there's a lot of discussion going on, in the world of non-duality and Advaita. And after a year and a half of visiting satsangs, and I had my own teacher, and I'm reading 400, 500, 600 books about non-duality, and watching every video there was, I could teach non-duality at Harvard. I knew everything about it, and I used it not to feel. I was a master of spiritual bypassing. I didn't even know that was a thing. So you could put me in every satsang around the world, and I could be sitting in front of everybody, and I could always point everything or steer everything back to the people who are asking the questions. I became a master of saying nothing in a lot of words. but I still felt like shit, to be honest. And then I think at the end of no, yeah, I think at the end of uh, 9 October 2015, I had an experience where I saw that how amazing life is and how everything is perfectly, you know, congruent and amazingly um, adapted and technically perfect and everything. I was watching the street. I was standing in front of my room in Amsterdam in a very long street. And it was somewhere in October or September, end of September, and the sun was shining on the church across my street. And there was someone passing on a bicycle, and I suddenly felt like that life was like a Swiss watch, like the refined technology about everything. Everything is perfect. Everything, is connected to everything else. And I was like, I was standing out, and I saw that. I was feeling that. It was a very blissful moment. I think it lasted 3 seconds, and then it evaporated again, and it was completely high. I had a party after that. I was at the party. Only thing I could do was smile. So, and I tried to get, after that, for years I tried to get back to that feeling. So, I think there are more people have had an experience like this. And then I was completely focused or fixated by the fact that I wanted to be enlightened. That was my goal, because I found out that it was possible to be enlightened. I talked to people. I read books about people who were enlightened, not just sages, but like normal American guys or girls. It was something that was attainable. So I had a teacher, and we emailed for a year. And after that year, I was more miserable than ever. And one day I was sitting at my desk, staring at my computer. And then I was looking at my keyboard, and I suddenly realized, oh, wait. Oh, I know I know what it is. Oh, yes. I'm looking out of the eyes of Marnix, but I am not Marnix. Whoa, the universe is using Marnix as one of the ways to experience itself. It's very clear to me. And I call it the most beautiful disappointment of my life, because I suddenly knew that I saw something very powerful, but it was so mundane. It was so normal. It was so small, and yet the consequences of that were amazing. It changed everything. That little realization. And of course, most people who've seen stuff like that, life gets back with a vengeance. Whatever, I've worked with people, and I've known people who walked around in blissful feelings for 3 months. But there always comes a time when the ego or egoic mind or the intellect or whatever, personal thinking, whatever name you want to give that, comes back and tries to take its old place. And that's like one of the struggles I had after that, So, and for me, still, the old addiction to spirituality, oh no, I know what it. I've had the feeling. I've been there. I know it. I know this is what it is. Exactly how it is. I know that. Come on. Yet, if I get one more Muji clip, one more. Another untethered soul. Let's read it for the 6th time. I still have that. I still have this feeling where I am under the impression that there is still something more to see, to learn, to leap, to grasp, or whatever, to integrate. So I still do that. Less than I did, way less than I did, because I became much more relaxed around this whole thing. But I know a lot of people who are addicted to mindfulness. If they don't have their 1 hour on the pillow every day, they get really, really frustrated. Which begs the question what they have seen anyway when sitting on the pillow.
Mhm.
But that's a funny thing. We can get addicted to anything, and the addiction to spirituality is a very smart and a very subtle addiction because it seems like it's impossible. Like being involved in spirituality seems to be this whole holy place, this whole noble thing you can do, and the more you're obsessed with it, with devouring it, with eating it, with taking it in, the better it is because it shows your devotion, right? But let's keep it personal. Let's keep it how I see it. I've used spirituality to behave like a spiritual person, like what I think a spiritual person does. And that's a very ethical, very positive, very warm, and very nice, very understanding person. Life doesn't really agree with my vision. so for the last few years, I've tried very hard to ignore the old, the dirty stuff, the anger, the jealousy, the envy, stuff like that. And I became really, really very, very good at not letting it in anymore. And I've come to the conclusion, and that's how I see it right now. That's not healthy, at least not for me, to not embrace the whole thing, But that's a cool thing. First, I was, for 44 years, I was this vulnerable, lonely, small bag of bones walking around the earth, constantly worried about what would happen. Felt very alone and very without any hope for something better than that. Then I had a period that I felt like the universe was completely opposite. And now over the last few years, I've been floating somewhere in between, between the oh God, no, I know nothing to yeah, I know, you can't fool me anymore. Between the Zen-like moments and the moments where I lose it all again. And to me, it seems so logical that being here is the art of bringing it all together.
Yeah. There was something you said right at the start, Marnix, about I can't remember precisely what it was, but it was about taking your feelings very seriously and for me, one of the great gifts of the three principles has been taking. I still have exactly the same feelings, I think, but I don't knit into them to the same extent, and I don't take them so seriously, and I don't even care, And I was thinking, just as you were talking, I had a row with my daughter the other day, and it was a big misunderstanding, and and she's snarling at me, and I ended up putting the phone down at her. I mean, nobody would look at me and think, "Oh, there's a sort of spiritual giant." It's very ordinary, and yet inside, when we have that ability to enjoy the Zen moments and enjoy the humanness and be happy, with whatever shows up. For me, the last decade has been consistently happy, going like that. It's not happiness every moment. It's not devoid of, the whole 9 yards, the whole A to Z of emotion.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah.
Yeah, but especially, for people who have had a lot of pain in their lives, when they come across something like this, or, whatever your spiritual drug is, it gives you at least a sense of control over your life, to be able to accept stuff. Accepting stuff can be a new thing you start doing all day long. Oh, I accept it. Oh, it is what it is. So, and to a certain extent, it helps. It gives you something. It gives relief. That's what I've seen. By letting go of most of my anger, or not buying into most of my anger. You know, it gave me so much freedom, so much more time when I was okay with whatever was happening. But it can easily turn into a new thing you start doing. Because, you know, that's how we were raised. We are raised buying into methods and theories and steps and stuff you can do. And that's why this whole thing, the three principles inside out understanding, is so endlessly fascinating. And you know why I loved it so much is that my 1.5 years in the non-duality community, I felt non-duality was a very, that's my opinion, my experience, was a very quite cold way to look at life. Like, you know, it's just happening. It's all going on. It doesn't really matter, you know. There's no you, there's nothing. And it's very easy to use that to brush away your pain or your human traits you have. And it's hard work, but it pays off. Yet it seems to me that, so that's my experience right now, that there comes a time when you see that is not what it's all about. There is a deeper possibility of not trying so hard anymore. You know, not because when you're constantly thinking about your behavior, even if the behavior is way better than it was, you're still constantly thinking. You're still constantly worrying. You're still constantly writing out scripts for everything you're doing. And it's exhausting. And it's so much more fun. And you know, I've told this before, but the first time I came across the principles, I thought it was madness. I thought it was like, you know, a bunch of idiots talking, you know. Like, what are they talking about? 3 principles, come on. Not again, no new 3 steps or things. But 4 or 5 months later, when I saw the exact same videos again, because that's how funny life is, I thought they were amazing. I was so deep, and they were so touching, and they were so powerful. And the cool thing is that whenever people ask me what I do right now, most of the time I don't know even know how to explain what I do. And I can talk about this for hours. You know, we can sit here until next week, Sunday, no problem. Maybe I have to get up 3 times to go to the toilet, but you know, you can switch me on and then I go. But I still don't know what I do. Do you? What do you call what you do?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Somebody asked me that last night. You know, I sort of stumble around saying, you know, coach, consultant. I write a bit. Yeah. And it sounds so inadequate. And yeah, but who cares?
I don't even know what it means, to be honest, to be a coach or to feel like a coach. How would I know what that feels like?
Yeah.
But we use these words because they're practical, you know. Okay, what are you? I'm a coach. You can also say, well, I'm constantly reinventing life. I have no clue what I'm doing, but it's a lot of fun. It's very long description, and that doesn't fit your business card as well, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Are you up for some questions, if there are any, Marnix?
Of course. Yeah.
Because people have joined us as the call is going on, and
yeah, and they switch off their camera. So what I imagine is now that they're sitting with their eyes closed, they're listening to this brilliant conversation.
They're on the cushion.
Or they're just outside taking a hike, and like they didn't want to let us know they were leaving the conversation.
Well, I can see some people are very relaxed. Yeah, please, if we would love to hear what brought you to the call today. Is there anything you'd like to ask Marnix? Or
so Christian, when I sent you this the name for what I'd like to talk about, or the theme for what I'd like to talk about, how come you were interested by that, or how come you were? So it spurred something in you, or
yeah.
You know?
Well, so I wouldn't necessarily have used exactly that title to describe my own journey, but I've been sober for a long time, and it coincides with my sort of spiritual seeking, because before that I was a kind of intolerant atheist, and until life brought me to my knees essentially. But so the first half of my sobriety, I was just always like kind of exactly what you were saying. I was very busy trying to find the thing that would make me feel good, that would take away my pain. And I equated any pain or discomfort with spiritual sickness, or there was something wrong with me. It sounds ludicrous now, but I kind of was trying to seek some kind of emotional spiritual flatline.
Yeah.
It's insane. And of course it didn't work. And one of the first things that I came across when I stumbled into the principles, which was about 9 years ago, something like that. And it's not even kind of mainstream principles, but it was somebody, maybe Jamie Smart, maybe Aaron Turner, said that actually life is kind of doing this. It's going up and down all the time, and it's our own invisible thinking that's making it do that. And it was like a moment of clarity for me. I thought, yes, that is exactly what I've been doing. There's nowhere to get to, and I love it. I'm there. I can stop seeking. I didn't know. So for me, it was maybe I was more addicted to searching. I never got bliss, but addicted to trying to find bliss. And it was just able to let that go and really celebrate that the ups and downs are normal. And I think one of the things that really resonated was I had done a lot of work in my last job as a lawyer with all sorts of people who weren't alcoholics and addicts, but looking very intensely at their lives. And they had the same thing. So I kind of knew that this really is, it was like it all fell into place, that this is the human condition. And although it had been right in front of my eyes, I hadn't fully appreciated it. And in that moment, it kind of crystallized.
Yeah. And then we always have this amazing talent to forget it again.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, it's gone. I've worked with clients who, like, in one conversation, had this whole realization, but blissed them completely out. And they're like, for 3 months, they're in love with life. They text me all the time. I'm watching it. There's a cow. I'm watching at a cow. Have you ever considered how amazing a cow is? So I'm like, oh, I ate a sandwich this afternoon. Tuna sandwich. Tuna is the best. And then after 3 months, they email me and say, it's gone. I've lost it. So what I think, what I just heard you say is that you were looking for some spiritual or emotional flatline, a spiritual flatline. What we do is we have these goals, the things we want to achieve, places we want to go, but we never take even one step beyond that. It's like when I ask people, so what would you like? I would like this. And I said, okay, well, let's suppose you are there. Then what? And they say, well, no, then I have it. I say, okay, well, you're 36. You want to have that for the rest of your life, but nothing else? How do you think that works for you? How do you think life doesn't change? Yeah, I want to have this job and the boat and a house there and this one. It's like a whole collection of things you can try to gather in your life. But then, life changes is all the time. And we never realize that after we reach that goal, there was something will happen inside of we see somebody else who has the same thing, but only in better shape. Or we find there is a new version of the thing we just obtained, and then we have to start all over again. But we don't see that. We have such a blind spot for all these obvious things. So I ask people, you have a lot of stuff. Yeah. Do they make you happy? Well, yeah, at first, and then they don't. And I say, what do you do? Well, I get new stuff. I say, do you see what you're doing there? So it's not that I'm not doing that. I over the last years, I've become a little bit more clear around stuff like that. And I lost my appetite for, obtaining gadgets. Mm-hmm. But life is so blatantly honest in showing us our own stupidity, but we don't see it. We simply don't want to see it. I say, okay, so do you think, so let's say you go to a soccer game and one team wins big time over the other team, like 15-0. So then people come out of the stadium and you'll see like 50,000 different emotions. And half of them are like quite happy and something about around that. And half of them are not so happy or sad or aggressive and if you ask every individual who comes out of the stadium, why do you feel like you do? They'll all say that's because of the end result. And we don't see that's ridiculous. We don't see that very strange that we all have the same thing going on, but we all respond to it in a very different way. It just doesn't register. So sometimes I tell this to people and they say, yeah, so what? Yeah, okay, ooh, well, okay, I have to try a little harder. But this whole thing, like I ask people, so have you ever worried? And they say, yeah, constantly. And I say, do you ever worry about that something will happen the next day and that it doesn't happen? Yeah, constantly. I said, don't you see, isn't that a little bit strange? You know, can you tell me 5 moments in your life when worrying gave you the best solution for the problem you were at hand? He said, never happened. But you keep on worrying, yes? So there is something going on there, you know. And I think it's so funny to see how we all do that. I did that constantly. My life was one big show of constant worrying and trying to write blueprints for conversations. You know, I got into conversations with jokes under my arm. It was like, if they go that way, I have these jokes. If they go that way, I have those jokes. Which meant that I was never ever in a conversation. I was only waiting for my moment to stuff in all the things I made up before that. And it's so funny. We all do that, yeah.
So I was going to ask you. So, you know, it seems to me that when somebody can't see it, you know, they can say kind of, yeah, okay, I hear you, but so what? And then they move to what, you know, where you are now. What was the insight? Because it seems to me insight is the key that shifts it from a kind of yes, but so what, to having a really different experience. And what was the insight for you?
Oh, there was no insight. There were 1,000 insights. You know, I think one of the crucial ones, it wasn't very spectacular in the effect it had, but it was a very clear one, was when I was very, very, very depressed and was sitting on my bed in my bedroom in the first year after I quit drinking. And I realized that, whoa, I have depressed moments. It's not that I am depressed. I realize that if you are something, it's always there. Mm-hmm. And if you are not something, you have it or you experience it. And there was, for the first time in my life, I realized, oh, yesterday I felt shittier than now. A year ago, I felt better than now. 15 years ago, I probably felt worse. 25 years ago, I felt okay most of the time. How is it possible that those things change so much? And how is it possible that I know they change? And what knows that it changes? What's that? So it was the first time there was this, I was so fixated on the content of what was happening with me. The first time in all my misery. And those are the best moments to see this, you know, when you're on the ground, on the floor, you know always almost drowning in your own snot or vomit or whatever shit. Then you see this stuff where you don't know where to go anymore. You surrender. I saw that. I had this first glimpse of being aware of what's aware. You know, this 180 degrees inside turn. Not so much fixated on what's happening within me or the experiences, but the whole fact that I had experiences in the first place. And they were changing constantly, and there was something that in present to that didn't change, because I realized I had always been aware of my life, and I was there, but I changed constantly. whole body changed. The things I think about myself, they changed constantly. But the awareness was always the same. And I realized something. The first nugget, was exposed in that moment. But it was so miserable then that I just went on in the misery again for a few months. But after that, it started to crumble, and light started shining in, and more and more and more, I got glimpses around the whole idea that life is simply a dance where everything happens the way it happens. And it's something our mind will never ever be able to grasp or to encompass or to get to really feel or really grasp or explain or whatever. We can't be. Our brain is way too small for that. But we can get a feel for this whole situation, and the feel says it all. That's beyond brain and beyond intellect. It's way deeper, way bigger than that, and we all have the capacity to have those experiences. And that's why I'm so happy that many people know what flow means. And I can always use it as an example. They say, I'm always unhappy and I've had all these problems and I will never be okay. And so, have you ever had flow in your life? Yeah. I said, well, what do you think that means? And most people don't know. They haven't given it any thought. And I say, your flow is just the absence of your personal story. Because only in your personal story there's pain. Nowhere else.
I love that. That's so so cool. I love the way you put that. I'll be using it.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, and it's something pops up, and I'm not sure if this has got anything to do with what we were talking about, but I always hear many of the hotshots in Three Principles community talk about being able to see the health in other people, and Dick and Bettinger and Michael Neal and many people talk like that. And up until a few months ago, I thought I never had an experience like that. But what I didn't see is that when I talk to somebody, I never take their story serious. Mm-hmm. I respect their pain, but their story is crap. I know that. And that, for me, I realized, that's my way of seeing it. I don't buy in their story. I am there, making space for the pain and the fact that they're so confused and all the suffering that's there. But the whole story, I couldn't care less about that. So I think that's the same. Like, that's why I can have 5 sessions a day. I feel amazing afterwards. It's not like I'm not drained or something like that. All my life, every time I talk to a psychologist or psychiatrist, and I talk to a lot of them, for years, I was thought, man, how can they handle all this crap, all this shit where I'm constantly whining and pouring out, and I'm such a victim day in, day out. How do they do that? But also the real pain, the sadness, the somberness, the melancholy, everything you have to deal with all day long. How do people do that? I thought, and then I thought because I think the people who don't get burned out after 5 years, they don't take it too personally. Yeah. they're just available for there, and it's such a strong position to come from. I believe, because I always had this very manly look on how you deal with people coming up to you with problems or difficult situations. You get solutions. You find solutions. Maybe you can try this or you can try that. And most people don't even want that. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that it's enough to just be there. Wow, that's so powerful. That took me some time to get that. I was 44 when I realized that.
I think some people never do.
I know. I'm lucky. I'm lucky because, to be honest, I've started a new career with coaching. You know, 6 years ago, I started walking with people through the park because I was interested in people. And after 2 hours of walking, they were relieved and they felt better. And I thought, oh, that's cool. And then I went on, and then suddenly life pushed me so much more and more and more in the direction of this profession, this thing I'm doing right now. And in the end, it turned out I had such a great background to do this. And then the most ironic thing and the most funny thing, I think, is that I've been in advertising all my life, and the only thing I did is tell people that they need a lot of shit to feel good. And now I tell them exactly the opposite.
Excellent. I love it. I'm just keeping one eye on time. Well, we do have some time left. I'm just going to once again invite anybody listening to come in. If you just unmute yourself if you would like to make a contribution. It'd be lovely to hear from you. Oh, please come in. I'll unmute you. There you go. You're unmuted.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, John.
Hi, Marnix. I only joined this group only a month maybe, and then I started in the last few days. I was picking up on some of the stuff you were saying, and then when you posted the thing about your YouTube talk, and you were saying how observing your thoughts, and so when I woke this morning, I listened to it again, and then I went for a walk, and I was going in and out of, oh yeah, just watching my thoughts. Oh yeah, I'm observing my thoughts, and sometimes, you get it. You see that. You see your thoughts and your feelings, and you see yourself as the observer. And now, I mean, like you, I've looked at spiritual stuff so long, and I thought, 2 years ago, I would have looked at that, observing your thoughts. Yeah, well, yeah, that's good. That sounds really good, but I never got it. But and you're always looking, you're always searching, but then there's a time when you do see things, and it's not just intellectual, it's a knowing. And I kind of walked through that part this morning, and oh yeah, and I'm looking, and I'm all right, and I was seeing my thoughts come up and watching, and that was new to me. I'd watched video after video, but for the first time it felt real, and that was through. And I thank you for putting that up on YouTube and posting that in the script, and that did help. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, John. I love that. I love it. And you said it's not just intellectual, it's non-intellectual.
Yeah.
The intellect probably just got in the way over the last years, and you wanted to get it so deeply. You were longing so much to see that.
Yeah.
And now, no, this is really, really very cool, because now you've had this whole realization of how simple and how easy it is to see it and not to engage in it, and to just be aware of it. And probably it's just your time right now to
yeah.
see
There are
that.
the awareness. You know, we're always aware. We've always been aware, and you can never lose awareness. You know, whatever. You know.
Yeah.
But you get dragged. You know, bang. You know, because anxiety has been such a, you know, thing for me. You know, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I don't. Over the last couple of days, you know, just so much more aware and just.
So can you, the awareness is one thing, or the seeing is one thing, but are you aware of the fact that there's something very solid and steady and peaceful and quiet that is aware of everything that's happening? So that's even more interesting than knowing that the stuff is happening. I like to compare it. I like to use the metaphor. I made that up, so here we go. I like to use the metaphor of a circus tent. Like you have this village in England, and there's this field outside of the village, and there's a circus tent. And the circus tent is there year round. It's there always. And the circus tent is used by everyone in the village, but also by visiting bands, by stand-up comedians, by the debating club of the village. And the tent is the tent. The tent is the place who makes all the experiences possible. You can laugh in the tent, you can cry in the tent, or you can dance in the tent, but the tent is just a tent. And what we do is we are at the tent, but we forget that, and we start believing we are the band that is performing, or that we are.
Yeah, I mean, you know, no, day before yesterday, went into the coffee shop, just sitting there reading a book, spiritual book, and just reading my book. And then conversation I get dragged into to my right, and these people, God bless them, you know, me, it's his fault. No, it's not, it's her fault. Like, I'll tell you whose fault it is. And I'm trying to read my book, and I'm going, oh no, you know, I could. I'll be honest. I was going, oh my God, what are they? What? Who do they? What? And I'd lost it, and I had to go sit somewhere else because.
But John, can you see that the conversation you heard is exactly like the conversation we have going on in our minds all day long? Yeah. Exactly the same. Yeah.
Exactly the same. You know, because that's happening within myself at the same time as what's happening with what they're believing and what they're seeing, quite innocently. What they're seeing, they're believing, they're talking about. I'm doing the same thing, but it's just in my mind. But I'm not talking to anyone. I'm talking to myself. Yeah. And doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's just the same bullshit.
Yeah.
So you know, as you know, you don't have to care about the conversation at the other table. You don't have to care about the bullshit, the conversation in your head as well.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
That's very helpful, right? To see that.
Mm. Yeah, you know, sometimes it's overwhelmingly intellectual more than it is spiritual. But then having come back from the park, I came in and just sat there watching the cricket, and I was just, I don't know, in this other place of stillness and quietness, you know. But this is as well. Still very hard at times. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I've got to be honest. Still very hard.
It is, and it will be. But remember now that you've experienced
Yeah.
this stillness, and the stillness is always there. Sometimes it's like you're on a place where 1,000 conversations are taking place, and you get crazy. But the stillness is never gone. The stillness is the background of all the conversations. The stillness is exactly who you are, and it will never leave you. And it wouldn't surprise me if, by having seen or having had this experience, this deep feeling of stillness, that it will be easier for you to recognize it a little bit more quick um, than you did before, because that's what I see with myself, but also with the people I work with. Once you've seen it, you get you get reacquainted with it. You get a taste for it again. It's reintroduced in your life. You get a feel for it. So it's amazing that you had that feeling. I'm really really happy for you that happened. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
Cool, man. Yeah. Are you Dutch, you know?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, my brother, he speaks fluent Dutch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. But if I ever point him in this direction, which I've kind of tried to nudge, wait, look here, you know.
He could read one of my books, because I can never sell my books in the Three Principles community because they're all in Dutch.
Okay.
Yeah, but he could. Yeah. So maybe if people are interested, you were referring to a talk I did and I posted it. It was my TED talk. It's called No More Fear of Life.
Yeah, it's good.
Maybe people heard that and wanted so I just wanted to say that.
Marnix,
thank you very much. Thank you, Christine.
Oh, John, thank you for everything that you shared there.
Nice to meet you.
And you, Marnix. I will also post a link to your TED talk, and thanks so much for all of it. And I love the metaphor of the tent in the village green and everything coming through it as tears. Yeah, I love that. I am also conscious of time, Marnix, and I do try and keep these two just about the hour. But it has been a really wonderful conversation. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for making the time, taking time out of your Sunday.
Sure thing. I love being invited, and I was very honored by your invitation to do this. So I've an hour well spent.
Well, certainly that's how I feel. Are you? If people want to contact you, Marnix, is there an email or a website that you would like to share? And I can also add it to the notes.
Yeah, well, it's I'm really good in Google working. I'm very Googleable, so I know you can put in Marnix, and you'll probably one of the first links you see will be mine. And my website is marnix.nl. So it's and Marnix, Marnix.nl. So very simple. I'm on Facebook as well.
Okay.
So please, if you're interested after hearing this, you can contact me any questions you have, and I'll be happy to answer them.
Well, that's very good of you. Thank you so much. Well, I'm just gonna say thank you and good night. Thank you to everybody who joined us. Some people have had to just drop off at the end of the hour, but it's been a real pleasure. And the recording we put up within the next 24 hours. So I'm just going